The courtroom air was thick with the weight of unresolved history as Judge Ebony K. Williams adjusted her robe, her gaze steady and unwavering. She looked down at the two individuals standing before her bench, their body language revealing a decade of friction masquerading as co-parenting. The courtroom was silent, save for the rhythmic tapping of the court reporter's keys. Judge Ebony K. Williams began with the quiet authority that defined her presence. She noted that she hailed from North Carolina by way of Louisiana, carrying with her the cool temperament of the West Coast and the sharp, uncompromising edge of New York. She reminded everyone present that her courtroom was a space for equal justice, where freedom and integrity were the guiding principles. The plaintiff, Mike Graff, stood tall but visibly agitated. Beside him, the defendant, Lisa Fuller, maintained a posture of guarded defiance. The dispute centered on a 10-year-old boy named Mikey and a smartphone that had become a battlefield for two parents who had long struggled to find common ground. Mr. Graff had initiated the lawsuit, seeking $5,000 in damages. He claimed that the emotional distress caused by his son's mother had forced him to seek professional therapy for post-traumatic stress disorder. He insisted that the financial burden of his healing should be borne by the person he held responsible for his mental anguish. Judge Ebony K. Williams listened intently as Mr. Graff explained the root of his grievances. He recounted the day his life felt derailed by an unexpected phone call from Miss Fuller. She had called him, furious and unhinged, demanding to know his moving plans. Mr. Graff had been bewildered, insisting that he had no intention of moving. It was then that Ms. Fuller revealed the source of her information, a screenshot of a private conversation he had held with his former girlfriend. The conversation had been retrieved from a smartphone he had purchased for their son. Mr. Graff argued that the device, while used by the child, remained his property, and the act of installing software to monitor his text messages, emails, and even deleted communications constituted a severe invasion of his privacy. The judge turned her attention to Ms. Fuller, inviting her to share her perspective. Ms. Fuller did not hesitate. She explained that their decade of co-parenting had been fraught with difficulty, far from the smooth arrangement Mr. Graff had described. She highlighted a crucial agreement they had reached. They would not provide their son with a smartphone until he reached middle school. She had been shocked to discover that Mr. Graff had gone behind her back, purchasing the device for the 10-year-old without her knowledge or consent. She felt that the lack of transparency was a pattern in his behavior, and her decision to monitor the phone was a protective measure for their son, rather than a malicious attack on Mr. Graff. Judge Ebony K. Williams paused the proceedings, asking Mr. Graff if he admitted to breaking their agreement. Mr. Graff, struggling to maintain his composure, conceded that he might have overstepped. He claimed that he had given in to his son's wishes because he wanted to be a people-pleaser, hoping to be the kind of father who could appease the child. The judge looked at him with a discerning eye, reminding him that effective parenting was rooted in acting in the best interest of the child, not in seeking validation through appeasement. She pushed him further, challenging him to demonstrate how Ms. Fuller was legally and morally responsible for the $5,000 in medical bills he sought. Mr. Graff struggled to articulate the direct link between her actions and his trauma. He pointed to the invasion of privacy, the shock of the confrontation, and the persistent feeling of being watched. However, the courtroom remained focused on the broader context of their dysfunctional communication. Ms. Fuller continued to assert that her actions were dictated by her concerns for their son's safety in a digital age, emphasizing that a 10-year-old was far too young to navigate the complexities and potential dangers of a smartphone without parental oversight. She viewed her surveillance not as an intrusion into his personal life, but as an essential safeguard for their child's well-being. As the arguments unfolded, the dialogue shifted toward the importance of boundaries. Judge Ebony K. Williams guided the conversation with the wisdom of a seasoned arbiter, highlighting the necessity of trust and mutual respect in co-parenting. She urged them to move past the finger-pointing and focus on the practical reality of raising their son in a healthy environment. It became clear that the $5,000 sought by Mr. Graff was merely a surface-level manifestation of a much deeper, long-standing resentment that had simmered for years. The judge emphasized that the courtroom was not a place to solve personal vendettas, but a forum for finding equitable solutions based on facts and shared responsibilities. In the final deliberation, Judge Ebony K. Williams addressed the essence of the case. She reflected on the definition of justice, noting that it required looking beyond the immediate emotions of the litigants to understand the underlying motivations. She acknowledged the validity of Mr. Graff's feelings regarding his privacy, but also validated Ms. Fuller's right to ensure the safety of their child. The judge concluded that while the actions taken by both parties had been impulsive and flawed, they were ultimately two individuals struggling to define their roles as parents after the romantic relationship had failed. She spoke of the importance of the child's perspective, noting that Mikey was the silent observer of his parents' conflict. She urged them to consider how their behavior, their lack of transparency, and their inability to communicate were impacting the boy. She encouraged them to shift their focus from the phone and the spyware to the collaborative process of raising their son. Justice, in this context, meant establishing clear, written agreements and respecting them, rather than seeking financial retribution for emotional hurt. As the session drew to a close, Judge Ebony K. Williams offered a final, poignant observation on the nature of parenting. She emphasized that children are perceptive, and they learn more from what their parents do than from what they are told. By engaging in such a public dispute over a device, they had inadvertently highlighted the very issues they were trying to suppress. She called for a renewed commitment to open communication and mutual accountability, reminding them that they were forever linked by the life they had brought into the world. The courtroom, once a place of tension and accusation, settled into a quiet reflection as the two parents left, faced with the challenge of building a new foundation for the sake of their son. The experience had been a catalyst for change. Mr. Graff, though initially blinded by his own sense of victimhood, began to see the necessity of setting healthy boundaries and being honest with Miss Fuller. Miss Fuller, in turn, realized that while her protective instincts were valid, the method she had chosen had only deepened the chasm between them. The journey toward a healthier co-parenting relationship would not be immediate, but the proceedings had provided the necessary clarity to move forward. They left the courtroom not as adversaries, but as two people tasked with the most important job of their lives, carrying the lessons learned in the pursuit of equal justice. The story serves as a reminder that empathy and understanding are the cornerstones of any healthy human interaction. Even in the face of conflict, there is always an opportunity to choose growth over bitterness. By prioritizing the needs of their child and striving for integrity in their actions, they could eventually build a future that was defined by cooperation rather than contention. The courtroom of Judge Ebony K. Williams had done its work, not by declaring a victor or a loser, but by holding up a mirror to the litigants, allowing them to see their own roles in the chaos and inspiring them to seek a better path for themselves and for their son. The echoes of the proceedings remained, a testament to the fact that peace is a conscious choice, one that must be made anew every single day, through the small, consistent actions that build trust and strengthen the bonds of family, no matter how fractured they may seem.